Hey guys, welcome to the Bruce Williams channel. Today let's take a look at this really interesting Luminor Marina TuttoGrigio, the PAM01662, retailing at $15,400. So quite a pretty penny for this stealth-styled 50s case from Panerai. We have 300 meters of water resistance. We have an 8-year warranty if you buy this from an authorized dealer. And what is really compelling to me, the reason why we're getting such a hefty price tag on a classic 44 millimeter Luminor is the fact that essentially we have a 3D printed watch here, a 3D printed case. And this is not just cheap polymer or anything like that. What Panerai calls this is DMLS, or direct metal laser sintering, which essentially Panerai takes a high-powered fiber optic laser and a blend of titanium powder, and then they 3D print the case one very thin layer at a time. Each pass only adds 30 microns, or about 0.03 millimeters in overall material, which is really cool. Really small, meticulous, slow. It's going to take a little while to print this case, and they can do it to a very tight tolerance. And then they take this titanium case and they sandblast finish it, which I've got to say is lovely. It has a smooth touch, you know, if you rub your finger on it, but you get this, for lack of a better term, it kind of sparkles in person, in the light. And it's different from just matte finished or sandblast finished titanium that's non-3D printed. So it really is a lovely execution that is unlike anything else on the market. And I just love the fact that Panerai utilizes these non-traditional metals, materials, methods, and finishes that you don't see that often. Now, this will sound a little bit of a low blow, maybe a backhanded compliment, and I don't mean this in a negative light, but when I was first getting into watches, I didn't know much about watches at all, only that I liked them. And so if I saw a really interesting colorway, I thought it was an even more attractive watch. And so I liked quite a few fashion watches before I became educated and I really got into this hobby. And to me, looking at this Luminor, I don't see a classic Panerai. Like I can see the architecture. I almost see the same type of elements that got me into watches, that got me into liking fashion watches in my early days. I look at this grayed out stealth combination, and yes, it's not the most legible watch. It is very muted. It does fly under the radar. It's understated. But man, this is cool. And the fact that we have direct metal laser sintering, I don't know, that just takes it up to the next level. We also have Carbotech here in the bezel, in the crown, and in the lock lever, which essentially what Carbotech is a lightweight, high-strength carbon fiber composite. Panerai takes very, very thin sheets of carbon fiber. They mix it with polyether ketone, and at a high temperature and a high pressure, they essentially press this material together. It is lighter than ceramic. It is very scratch resistant and highly anti-corrosive. It was developed about 7 years ago, and there are a few models that are made entirely of Carbotech, but again, it's just found in accent places here, high wear places with the bezel, with the crown, and with that lock lever on the side of this case. Now, not specific to this TuttoGrigio is this lock lever, and I love the crown protection system on a Panerai. It is so overkill. It is really cool, and I'm drawn to it personally as a watch fan. I really, really like that. So continuing with the case, we have DLC treated titanium on a screw back case back, and then we have a trapezoidal pin buckle done in DLC treated titanium. So the entire watch is exceptionally light and scratch resistant, and again carries that really interesting finish that almost sparkles in light. You have to get it in the right light, and I don't know, it's just a fun little detail. I love, as a watch fan, I love spending time with the watch and then noticing little things that surprise you and make you appreciate that watch on your wrist even more. For me, this is not a logical hobby. This is an emotional hobby. So I look at this price tag and I think, you know what, this would be fantastic if this was like $5,000. But then the more I look at it, the more I spend time with it, the more I look at the, direct metal laser sintering, the 3D printed titanium, the Carbotech, the R&D that goes into this, the in-house movement, I go, yeah, there's no way I'm going to get this for $5,000. $15,000 sounds appropriate, even though it would hurt the pocketbook. It would hurt the wallet, to make that type of purchase. Again, you're getting something cool that not a lot of other people will have on their wrist. So let's continue with the review here, and then we'll get into the negatives. I know I'm overly positive. I might be geeking out a little bit here to a degree, but we're going to talk about the negative elements as well. This is a Sport Tech sailcloth style strap, and I will point out the fact that we have the classic screw-in lug pins that you used to find on Panerai that are making kind of a resurgence in some models, and I love to see that. We have 44.1 millimeters of overall diameter, 53.8 in overall lug-to-lug dimension, with a 14 millimeter height and a 24 millimeter lug width. So classic Panerai dimensions. And I will say, there's going to be some of you that go, I wish this watch were smaller. Can't they make 40? Can't they make 42? Well, they do in some models, but here's the thing. Although a smaller watch would be more comfortable and more palatable on wrist, that's not necessarily what you want with a Panerai. And let me explain my thought process here. Panerai historically was made for the military, was made for frogmen doing night missions in murky water, right? It was meant to be loud and proud and visible. Essentially, it was a tactical tool watch. And so that's why I think Panerai can get away with the larger sizes, and it just feels right. It feels appropriate. Now let's talk about the way this one wears, specifically this 1662. It's comfortable. I'm not going to lie, it's a big watch, and it fills my wrist real estate really well. But the thing about it, because it is so light, it's deceptively light with the titanium, with the Carbotech, it ends up being very comfortable, and it doesn't feel tall. A lot of the overall height, the nominal dimension of this watch comes from the dome sapphire crystal. So this really kind of feels like my sub in overall profile, because without the crystal, it's about 12.9 in overall height. So I think it's comfortable. I could definitely get away with this, but if you have sub 7-inch wrists, I think you've got to try it on, because really this is pushing 54 in overall lug-to-lug length. And then we have the large crown protection system. I think you need to have a larger wrist to comfortably pull this off in a day-to-day situation. Now let's talk about the movement. What we have here is the P9010 caliber. It is completely designed and manufactured in-house. It's a relatively thin caliber with 31 joules, a 28,800 beat per hour rate, and then we have a 72-hour power reserve held in twin barrels. So 3 days of power reserve, a Glucidor balance, 200 overall components. And what is a little bit surprising here, this movement does not hack, but it does come with my favorite of the practical complications, which is the time zone feature. So let me demonstrate that here real quick. You unlock the lever, which is really fun to do. Honestly, that's one of the draws of buying a classic Luminor, is getting that crown protection system. But then you pull the crown out to the first position, and you move it in one direction. You can bump the local hand, the hour hand forward. You move it in the other direction, you can bump it backward, independent of hacking the balance. So it's fantastic if you travel and if you cross time zones on a regular basis, or if you live in the United States and you're subject to daylight savings change, you can make the adjustment when you need to in just a number of seconds. I find it very, very helpful. And then at the end of the month, if it is an irregular length month, it just takes, again, a few turns of the crown and you can adjust the date. So I love this time zone feature. I recognize it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like it. I'm glad to see it here on this Luminor Marina. Now let's talk about negatives here. Outside of the price tag, which we've touched on, outside of the non-hacking on this movement, which we've touched on, there's really only one thing that bothers me personally as a watch fan, and that is the lack of anti-reflective treatment on this sapphire crystal, to the point where if you're in natural light, it is distracting. It's difficult sometimes to read the time on your watch or take a photograph or a little clip of your watch if you like to post that on social media, because the reflections are so crisp and defined. And you pair that with the fact that we have a monotone look here with gray on black. And it can be a little bit difficult. So Panerai, man, you are charging us $15,000. The least you could do is fit this with fantastic anti-reflective treatment. I would be really happy with that as a consumer. But again, other than that, other than those nitpicks, this is a very cool watch. It blends a lovely original design with a stealth colorway, which I really enjoy seeing. And it's all done in cutting edge materials with an in-house movement, the modern processes. Yes, please. This is really cool. It reminds me of why I kind of got into this hobby, connecting with watches emotionally and taking a little bit of the logic away, if that makes sense. So it's lovely. It's cool. Is it perfect? Definitely not. Definite areas for improvement. And hopefully I've been able to illustrate the good and the poor here of this model, and that you have found this review, this presentation informative and helpful. If you're shopping for a Panerai, I'm going to get you in touch with Bill at Royal Jewelers in Andover, Massachusetts. He can give you quotes. He can give you pricing, all of that stuff. Put your name on that 8-year warranty. All of the links is in the description. So thank you to Bill at Royal Jewelers for lending this one in. I really appreciate it. And guys, thanks for watching today. I'll see you real soon.